Welcome to Jamaica Live on Bridge 99. Thanks for joining me. And when we get to noon after the noon break, we're going to welcome as well our listeners from New York and the tri-state area who we're going to be linking with Irie Jam Radio at that time for the second hour of the program. There is nothing that has done more to establish our global identity, what we call Brand Jamaica. There is nothing that has done more to establish that than our music. Reggae music, to be more precise. No matter where in the world you go. You know, I was in the Maldives 2 years ago. The Maldives are a group of tiny islands, over hundreds of islands, over 1,000 small little islands in the Indian Ocean. The largest island is about the size of Mona Heights. And the persons that I came across there, none of them had ever met a Jamaican before. And the moment they heard that I was from Jamaica, the response from many of them was, reggae music, Bob Marley. Never mind that Bob Marley died 40 years ago before most of them were even born. So, tell me, can you think of any country in the world of our size, less than 3 million people, that has produced music that is among the recognized genres throughout the world? Reggae is up there with rock, with rhythm and blues, with jazz, with country and western. I believe that reggae's enduring quality comes from its authenticity. You know, some music forms are created in a studio, like in a laboratory. You develop a beat, you give it some rhythm, you throw in some lyrics, and bingo, Billboard, here I come. Not so with our reggae music. Reggae was born in the ghettos of Trenchtown and Jonestown and Denhamtown and places like that. It is the cultural expression of real-life experiences, personal, social, spiritual, economic, political experiences. It proclaimed the challenges and the struggles, the triumphs and the disappointments, the hopes and the despair, the love and the hate. But music is not just cultural expression. It's not just talent on display or artistry in its glory. It is all of that. But it is much more than that. Music is business. Big business. Big, big business. In America, for example, the music industry contributes $170 billion, spelled with a B, $170 billion to the gross domestic product of the United States. In Europe, that figure is 90 billion US dollars. In England alone, the music industry provides direct jobs, direct employment for over 111,000 people. Now, the music business has many different facets. It involves many different processes. It's not just a matter of cutting a tune. There is the artistic creation. That's the composition, the rhythm, the lyrics. Then there is the actual arrangement and the recording. And then there's production. In the old days, it used to involve putting that music on vinyl. And then we moved to CDs, and now we're into more sophisticated digital formats. And then there's the promotion and the marketing. Each of these stages adds value to the process. But the bulk of the wealth that music creates, and I should add the bulk of the risks that are taken in promoting music, are in the back end, in the promotion and marketing. Where does Jamaica fall in all of these processes as far as reggae music is concerned? Reggae belongs to us. I mean, we've shared it with the rest of the world, but it is intrinsically ours, Jamaica's. But where do we fall in terms of all the money that reggae music is generating across the world? Where are we in which of these phases of music development and production are we on top of our game? And where are we losing out? Reggae is already globalized. We don't need to introduce it to anybody anymore. The question that I want to pose is, how can we globalize our participation in the value chain that reggae music possesses? How can we optimize? How can we maximize our share of the wealth that reggae music creates? I don't have those answers. I'm just a curious and concerned inlooker. Today we're going to be talking with some people who I know can help us to find those answers. We'll come back. Well, welcome back. Jamaica Live on Bridge 99. We're talking music today. We're talking reggae music. We're talking about the business of music, the economics of music. Reggae music is one of our biggest assets, and that's where we want to focus our minds and our discussions. And I'm so pleased to welcome to the program this morning my first guest today, Mr. Micheal Ibo Cooper, founding member of the Third World, now immersed in doing excellent work, teaching and training young musicians at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. Ibo.
Bless. Good morning, sir. Good morning. And I want to say good morning to all the listeners, too.
Good. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. I know you had warned me before that you can't stay with us for too long. Yeah. But I'm happy that you were able to come on. Ibo, we're talking about reggae music.
Yes.
We're talking about reggae music as perhaps the biggest asset that we have. Mm-hmm. How good have we been at asset management of reggae music?
Well, let me jump right into a comparison that might put the thing in perspective. The popular music industry in the UK started at the same time as ours. And yet, last year, they reported 500 million net profit. And we are still trying to figure it out. I'm talking now the country, institutionally, right? We have individuals making money, you know. But what Britain has done, and I'm trying to encourage us to go in that direction. For example, Britain has an arts council. There are several foundations that provide incubator for those coming up. Young producers can get money to invest in their projects. You get me? There's a better understanding over the years of it. And let me give you a good example of a present situation in England. Adele, who is now a multi-billion-dollar artist. Adele came out of that system. It's not a bat up and catch like what we have here, where, you know, say, get a talented person and then pass by the studio and them hang out. There's a structure. You know, the country's government has structured something through the years, and it's working.
What progress have we made in that kind of direction? We don't have the resources that they have, but, you know, we have resources.
And, that is it. I think that's an illusion about the resources that they have. It's how you utilize the resources that you have. And let us look at now what I'm trying to encourage here. For example, we have an organization called the Jamaica Reggae Industry Association, JARIA. I was the chairman for about 7 years now. Ewan Simpson, who is an attorney and musician, is the chairman.
He's coming on later.
Yes, and we have tried through the years to encourage the industry itself. Let's not go government yet. We are trying to get the industry themselves to see how much we can support ourselves. It is the only industry, as big as we are internationally, that I will bravely say on national radio is not doing enough for itself as a collective. I'm just talking about some form of collective funding. Guys go on tour, and guys go on internet, and they are selling records and so on. And a $10 or so on seems very hard for them to put into a collective entity. Yet a bottle of Hennessy costs so much. You see what I'm saying?
Ibo, Lloyd Stanbury, who I know you know well, and Lloyd is coming on today as well. And he has published fairly extensively on this subject. He made the point, and I want to get your comment on it. He made the point some time ago in one of his published articles that a big problem with Jamaican reggae music is that it is organizationally unstructured. Is that a fair comment?
That was a fair comment, and that is why we have JARIA. It was in answer to that. We have been criticized because you see, when they want somebody to blame for crime and so on, immediately, Adam DJ boy, the cause it. You get what I'm saying? So we responded, and I am proud to say that we have made progress. We try to get best practice. We try to get people to understand their own intellectual property and how it can be utilized. But look at the United States, for example, where intellectual property can be taken to the bank. You see, we need our business people now. This is where the business people come in to be more mature in understanding. But they look at it as very high risk. So there's a nervousness to invest.
Well, let me probe that with you. Let me probe that with you a little bit because this is business, and business requires investment. Mm-hmm. What explains the sort of risk aversion, the timidity on the part of local investors? I know from my own peeps into the financial sector in Jamaica that there are billions of dollars that are sort of roaming like nomads all over the place trying to find something to latch on to. Why is that money scared of going into Jamaica's music so that we don't find ourselves being hostages to the big international labels? Why is that?
Let me make sure I understand your question. You are saying why isn't the a kind of money that is available?
Yeah, the local investors.
Local investors.
Yeah, I want to come back to what the government in terms of its own institutional contribution is.
All right, but if you're talking local investors, the local investors have a different attitude from the overseas investors. Different attitude.
Well, how different? What's the difference?
Nervous bad.
But why? Don't they want to make profit?
They think it's very high risk. There's still the view. A bunch of man will go through and smoke weed and just done the money. That is the view.
Well,
if they're honest with themselves, right? Whereas the creativity of the man with him big spliff under the tree with him guitar is viewed differently in the UK and in Canada and in America. And I'm not joking. I know it might sound ridiculous, but I'm not joking. These guys have a skill that is not everybody has. They can get that magic melody. But in our society, them looked on as worthless. But it's work. It is a job. Songwriters in Philadelphia in the days of Gamble and Huff went to work 9 to 5 and sat down with their piano in rooms and came up with stuff like the Stylistic multi-platinum album. You are everything and everything is you. It's not some guy who just up on a bus. You know what I mean? They went to work. Ziegler, Linda Creed, all of these people were songwriters. That's what they did for a living. Our own song, Now That We Fall in Love, which was written by that team, that came out of that. We don't have that kind of structure here.
But why don't we?
nervousness. We don't understand it. For example, yours truly was taken in to an interview by the Jamaican Development Bank to talk about venture capital. And I went in there and they picked my brain and they made their speech, but the thing hasn't come to fruition yet.
Why?
You're drying me out, brother, bro.
Yeah, but that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm. Why? Is it prejudice? Is it?
Yes, it has some. There's a sort of social classism to it, and there's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, but Ibo,
and traditionally, our families think of the artist one in the family as the worthless one, and worse the music.
No, but I thought we had crossed that bridge long time.
No,
man.
Just like the trimming of the dread, we not cross it yet. We think we cross it, but we not really cross it yet. We're still nervous. Whereas it's different in the so-called first world countries. Okay? There are guys in big corporations who they know they just have these ideas and they have the kind of mind. And the company don't care whether them hair long and them jeans tear up. Because the company now put the technicians, after the ideas come out of their head, the companies take the technicians now to get all of these magic products we're using today. But we know that some of these guys who are doing software and so on are some little geeks in a room who, smoking a thing or drinking a thing, but them just wicked away there. Today, that kind of thing can happen with our music. And I want to praise Chris Blackwell in that regard, because Blackwell has a different attitude. And so we have Bob Marley.
Tell me, what is it that needs to be done? What can the government do to provide the institutional support that is necessary? I mean, we have a Minister of Culture who is not unfamiliar with the music business. What can people like you do to, you're in the business of money, and you're in the business of investment. Presentation is the key.
All right.
What can people like you do to really put before the people who have wealth in Jamaica who need to put that wealth to work, to put before them something that will excite them and say, boy, let me jump into this?
All right, we have tried, and they have bought it on various levels. Right now, I must say I'm working on a project and give thanks to one of our schoolmates. He has just independently come forward and said, listen, I'm going to support you. You get me?
Mm.
That is a person who is at present invested in the legal ganja industry, not the illegal one.
Mm.
There's another businessman who has come to my assistance, for example, recently, just because him said, boy, I know what you can do. But there have been some other people who I thought somebody like myself tried and tested would have been more of a resource to them. You get me?
Mm.
But they will call me in when it's brain picking time. And when the money I run, Bruce, me not to them. But that's a personal thing. But the point is there's just a nervousness to invest. Whereas the overseas people don't have that nervousness. Now, let me tell you something. I will say that a lot of product will flop. But it's the kind of industry where the one that succeeds will pay back for all the flops and more.
Yes.
That is the kind of industry. So it takes some understanding, and Jamaica Reggae Industry Association is trying our best now to get our business community to understand. The whole business of education and training, I am at present doing a paper to show what impact that has had. Because just like, I know I'm going to touch a very risky topic now, just like the business of being a pastor, many people now are not going into training anymore for these things. Them figure them no. Right? So training I am encouraging. I'm encouraging the Edna Manley College. Our president minister...
Can I share an anecdote with you?
Yes, sir.
I was staying at one of these Spanish hotels on the North Coast. And when I went in, I spent a weekend there.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a show, a cabaret show in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the show. And I was blown away at the quality of the show.
Yes.
And after the show, the hotel manager invited me to come backstage to meet the performers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was a time when there's a lot of argument going around how these Spanish hotels are importing Spanish workers. And I had just assumed that this was an imported act because it was it was comparable to what I've seen in Las Vegas and what I've seen on Broadway.
Yes.
And when I went round there, it's pure Jamaican accent I'm hearing. I said, where you all come from? Edna Manley.
Yes.
And I was blown away.
Yes.
Now, if that is the work that you and the other people down at Edna Manley are doing, well, that is a hell of a foundation. But you don't want that grape to die on the vine.
Absolutely. And we're not the only institution, yes, but and in terms of other aspects of it, I'm also at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, believe it or not, because they have a music and media program also, and geared for spiritual or secular, and we're working with that one. I've also assisted UWI, Monique's Teachers College, and so on. And, people are coming in, however, slowly. So I'm glad for a program like this that the listeners can understand where some of the work is being done, who is doing the work, and that the work needs support. Because maybe sometimes, it's just a matter of outreach.
What more does the government need to do?
No. I was about to say, our President Minister, I want to say kudos to her. Whether she's in power or in opposition, she has an altruism that is unquestionable, because she's also involved in the industry from a point of view of production. So she knows it, she has friends in it, she has contacts in it, and she really is there for it. However, she has expressed to me in camera that even within her own administration, she has met resistance. I hope I'm not chatting too much on the ear and I'm not calling any names. But you understand what I mean? Even within the administration, she has met resistance.
And that's not unusual, having been in administrations myself before,
Yeah. So, and some of the resistance is classist, because she has said, people have said to her, yeah, you Rasta them, go away. You get me? Under this administration, there has been I noticed finance has cut her, in her ministry, some more financial assistance than is customary. And I was also one of the persons that wanted the entertainment ministry to be with culture rather than with tourism. The reason for it, however, was that I think it belongs there, but the reason that they had put it with tourism in prior administrations is because tourism have a bag of money and culture don't get none. But they are linking up now and recognizing finally the value, international value, of the local music and how it pulls people to the country. Research was done, polls were done, and it showed that it is not that the music industry benefits from tourists coming here for the beach, but that the music industry is one of the reasons why tourists come here.
Yes.
You see, and you might wonder, wait, but people know that. You'll be surprised. People did not buy into that just a few years ago. You see. So those things are turning around. And I must give credit to the fact that we have Kingston as a creative city of United Nations Creative City of Music, and we now have reggae inscribed as intangible cultural heritage, also by the United Nations. So those are very positive things.
Let me ask before you go, because I know you have to go at 11:30, but let me ask you this. A criticism that used to be made, and using my word deliberately, used to be made because I haven't been hearing it recently. And it was a criticism that was fairly prominent around the introduction of dancehall. The criticism was that the quality of the music had fallen. You're talking about people who grew up with the Scatterlights and Ken Booth and Alton Ellis and so on. I myself, I haven't heard it recently, and I myself am quite impressed with the quality of some of the contemporary music that is coming out. What's your take?
Yes, and that is a matter of, it's a generation thing. When they are young, they tend to listen to it more tin-panny. But as they grow older, it was a difference, for example, in my generation when we were listening to some bubblegum stuff and then we matured to Earth, Wind and Fire. If you understand what I'm saying? Mm. So I see that happening now where some of our producers are reaching out for deeper sounds and deeper quality mixes and so on. Mm. Right? The digital world is key. Because I have to go, I want to jump here. we need to exploit the internet more.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might figure, say, but we know about that, and these are young people thing, and them have it wicked. No, you're surprised. COVID has shown them how much they have underutilized the internet. The world is now potentially your market, rather than back in the days of the record company when you had to work on, their outreach. You have now 3 to 4 billion people, potentially. It doesn't mean you're going to reach them right away. But the structures have to be put in place now to manage social media and the advantage that social media can give you in getting your stuff out there.
As we go, Ibo, let me just throw out a suggestion. I don't know why I'm being so presumptuous. But I want you to take note of the fact that there has been a generational shift in the corporate world over the last 5-10 years.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people younger than you and me are now at the helm of the biggest corporations in Jamaica. And I believe you should give some thought to trying to put together an approach to them, because I believe that their way of thinking may be significantly different from their predecessors and their fathers and so on, who they took over from. It is something I think worth pursuing.
Undoubtedly, and I have made some personal moves in that direction already. Yes. However, because of what I've done with Edna Manley, it's been 21 years, and yes. I have students now who the new students now looking at some of the old students like them father.
Yes.
But the beautiful thing about it, I feel a little Bernie Sanders-ish in that I am one of the elders I do get respect from the youth.
Yes.
Yes, them somehow they don't see me as a 40-dollar old guy.
Yeah.
So I try to keep myself current, and the reason I'm hanging on in there is because some of the dreams have not been achieved yet. Exactly why you're having a program like this.
Yeah.
So we want to see those things come to fruition. But what I'm talking about is there is some sort of naivety about social media that we're not using it right yet.
Yes. Yes.
And it doesn't matter the generation. Yes, they're thinking social media. Yes, they're thinking stats and so on. But there's a naivety about how to manage it.
I'm going to be exploring that. Sorry you won't be here because you have to leave me now. Ibo, I want to thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the enormous contribution you have made to Jamaican music, and thank you for the work that you're doing now with the students down at Edna Manley. Thank you so much, Ibo.
And I want to thank you too, because people don't know how long anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, this was my head boy back in the day.
No, God, you're gonna tell people how old you are now. And can I say that he was this school organist
from second form, right?
Yes, from second form. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
I got a prize from the headmaster for contribution in that regard.
Thank you very much, Ibo.
All right, brother B.
Good. We have joining us now, and I'm pleased to welcome them, Dr. Ray Hitchins, who is a lecturer at the University of the West Indies. I think he has a special focus on entertainment and cultural enterprise management. And then we have joining us as well Mr. Mikey Bennett, a well-known musician, composer, producer, the head honcho at Grafton Studios. Welcome, Dr. Hitchins. Mikey Bennett.
Hey, how are you doing, Steve?
I haven't seen you for a long time. How you been?
Well, I've been all right.
We're talking music, but we're talking the business side of music. I know, Dr. Hitchins, this is an area that you have given particular focus to. I start with a simple premise that I think is not going to be disputed, and that is that reggae music is perhaps the greatest asset that Jamaica has. But it is not working for us in the way that it can. As a matter of fact, some may even say it is working far more and producing far better returns outside of Jamaica than here. Is that a fair comment, and how can we fix it?
It depends what you define as by reggae music. If you use the foreign definition for that term, which really is applied to all Jamaican popular music, then yes, there may be some truth to that. My own perspective on this is that we have to look beyond the normal confines of what we think as being music in a traditional sense, because the way that the music industries are moving are much more towards automated systems that are dictated by AI and the kind of algorithms that drive companies like Spotify and other platforms where music is shared and disseminated with the wider populace, you know? So the music industry, in my view, is really being redefined as we speak. And one of the questions we have is how do we step up to that plate locally, you know?
Yes. Mikey, you come in here because you have been involved in the production of music. I mean, sometimes we're out there and we're jigging and dancing to the music and we don't even know that is the brainchild of a Mikey Bennett. And in the course of the many years that you have been at it, you have faced a lot of challenges. Is the way getting any smoother, or are we still trying to sort of struggle our way through?
Well, Ray kind of alluded to something, you know. One of the things about it, you know, is that the creators of music get the smallest share of all of the income earned from music, you know. In the early days, I was just reminded recently that music was not made intended to be a product of its own, you know. Music was always intended to sell other products, and which it does really well, whether it's alcohol or it's gadgets. So in the case of the people who created BMG, somebody told them that, listen, when music is played, people seem to buy more alcohol. So they decided to invest in things. Same thing happened with Sony and said, listen, we have all of these great new things that kids will love. What is going to drive the sale of these things is music, and music investment in popular things. So Sony went into music, not necessarily to sell music, but to sell gadgets, to sell Walkman and stuff. What we find happening in Jamaica now is that our music industry, although we have created some of the best music, I mean, we had the song of the century, and we have, by virtue of our creativity, we have produced all of these wonderful insulate, or in the cases. What we have not managed to do is to broad sell music and musicians, because it is very easy in our industry to highlight the outstanding individuals, the Shaggies and the Bob Marleys and the Budges and things. But for every Shaggy there is that made it, there is a couple hundred people who will never make it. So right now in Jamaica, well, now it's probably even more unfortunate time, because this is probably the time when probably the greatest suffering among the masses of musicians because of the obvious COVID thing. And I don't even see it happening. But
to what extent? And I want to put this to both of you.
Yeah.
It's a question that I threw at Ibo too, and he says that it's improving, but it still has a long way to go. And that is what appears from the outside to be not just an informal organizational structure, but one may even say an unstructured organization. Has that been an obstacle to the development of our music? I mean, is it a case where we have too many chiefs and too few Indians?
Very likely, I mean, I'd love to hear Ray's thing, because I mean, I have something, but I mean, I'm so close to it that I mean, I may not be seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, I actually feel that there is a lot of truth about the deficiencies that our music industry has suffered from, the legal system and the introduction of copyright laws, etc., but also the work of managers and whatever. But historically, for the last 60 years, that so-called disorganization that exists in the music industry has served us very well through the richness of the talent, through the innate talent that is there within the Jamaican population. The problem that we have right now is we need to be able to let that talent go on the structures of the internet through social media or whatever. Many people cannot access it and cannot monetize it. The influencers that you now have on YouTube that are not earning money traditionally by playing or writing music, they're reviewing instruments, they're talking about songs, they're talking about the structure of songs, and they're able to monetize their channel through things like PayPal and whatever that our local creative people can't get access to, by and large.
Why is that?
Because they don't have bank accounts, they don't have credit cards, they don't have ways of accessing those foreign dollars. And we need to let that talent go. That's one of the big problems that we have here.
But is you said they don't have bank accounts, they don't have credit cards, but isn't that where the local versions of Sony and Universal, where are they? Why haven't we spawned local investors who are prepared to not take on the big labels, but to recognize that here is a product that has real value and we could add much more value to it, and therefore we're going to put our money there. Why is it not attractive to investors? Why is it that people not prepared to go on the stock exchange and raise capital because this is a venture? This is a risk that is worth taking because of the tremendous potential it has for returns and success.
Yeah, Bruce, I think one of the problems that we suffer from is that it's always been the case in the creative industries, it's hard to convince an investor. Somebody wants to put their money in the stock market. It's hard to put them in an idea of okay, we have some creative people here who there's a potential to make millions of dollars talking about instruments or song development or the history of Jamaican music from an insider's perspective. It's hard to sell that idea. But the fact of the matter is there are people right now on YouTube talking about the application of makeup, about hairstyles, about strings you put on guitars, and whatever it is. And they're making lots and lots of money doing this.
Mikey, let me hear you.
Yeah, but I think Ray also found the chapter speaking about the very few, the very, very few. I mean, the outliers, the very few exceptional people who have the personality and this thing to kind of sell these other products. Well, I think there are some we call them private enterprises who don't really have a problem supporting the Sunsplashes and the Stings and things because of the obvious exchange. In other words, they've seen it succeed over the years. Where I think the problem lies is investing in a product that that for the next 3 years going to require investment without any guarantees. So
Mikey,
in other words, here's a young. You hear? Yeah.
Mikey.
Hello.
Mikey, hear me now.
Yeah, man.
I mean, Chris Blackwell is what, 84, 85 years old. We don't have any 35-year-old Chris Blackwells around that can see that this is an opportunity to do with our music now what... I mean, we have such a hell of a trail that has been blazed. We don't need to go pave that road. We only need to go drive on it.
No, but listen, here the other side of that story is that what we probably need to say is that the days of the big companies are over. I mean, a lot of the big companies have scaled down significantly because what these companies
the technology
initially was provided a route to the marketplace. So the marketplace is the internet.
Yes.
When the digital world came in, it created a lot of opportunities, but it also created a lot of difficulties.
Yes.
Anybody with a CD or digital thing became a master owner. In other words, you could go and replicate that hundreds of thousands of times, right?
Yes.
So I used to produce a lot of records. I used to sell a lot of records, and then one day I just got up on the record, stopped selling. So within a year, I moved from selling 50,000 copies of record to 300. So it didn't make a lot of sense anymore. What happened to that when we started to lose money, when individuals stopped making all this kind of money? Because we used to go through distributors. So there were some 3 or 4 major distributors of reggae. When people started seeing the royalty statements coming back, not with the hundreds of thousands that we used to get, but with a couple of thousand, people started to say, okay, let us leave out this middleman, which is what been taking place in music. We have left out a lot of the middle people who used to, make a thing. Everybody send records and we distribute it and take all the costs and take a major share. Mm-hmm. But what we didn't realize, like you mentioned, we probably have too many captains now. So a lot of people, everybody now is an independent producer because you can produce your stuff in your room or wherever, put it up on the internet, on YouTube, create a YouTube channel. But what it has resulted in is that we just have not been able to duplicate the numbers. And we have not been able to garner the kind of investment of a Chris Blackwell in a Bob Marley.
We're running out of time. Ray, a final word from you.
We're still talking about an exceptional case.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that it's a very complex system we're looking at. There's no easy fix to it. And certainly some of what Mikey is saying is certainly true. But we need to move our products to not to what was in the past, but into the future. That road you're talking about, Bruce, has now become a highway. But it's a highway that's online. We need fiber optic connections to it. And we need to get the average man in the street able to do that and engage in it, you know? That's what we're not doing.
Good. I want to thank both of you. Wish we had some more time because we're just scratching the surface. But thank you very much, Dr. Ray Hitchins,
right.
Mr. Mikey Bennett.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
All right, good.
We're going to be joined now by two people who I know are going to bring value to this discussion. Mr. Ewan Simpson, chairman of Jamaica Reggae Industry Association. Remember earlier we had Ibo Cooper on the program. He is a former chairman of that body. And we have Mr. Howard McIntosh, who cut his teeth in helping Jamaica to qualify for the World Cup in France a long, long time ago when he didn't have as many gray hairs as he has now, but he's now chairman of the Entertainment Advisory Board. I want to welcome both of you, Mr. Simpson and Mr. Howard McIntosh. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to put something to both of you.
Sorry, Georgian. Thank you very much, Georgia.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to have you. In the discussions we've been having since morning, some of the things that came out, government needs to do more in terms of the institutional support, financial support for the industry. But I also raised with my guest the question as to why it is that if we really want to maximize the benefit from reggae, we're going to have to invest some money. It requires serious investment. Why is it that our local investors who have money coming out of the ears that many of them don't know where to put it, why is it that the music industry has not appeared to them to be the kind of risk that they are prepared to take? Now, I want to put it to both of you. Does it have anything to do with the fact that the whole music business has changed so dramatically because of technology? I mean, we have gone out of the period of the virtual integration where the big record producers here, control from the recording right down to the distribution. The internet has provided a horizon of opportunity for artists. At first, the big fear was that, look, my record sales gone because people going to just download the music for free. But at the same time, it provides such a huge opportunity. Is part of the problem that the industry has not positioned itself, A, to be attractive to investors, B, to take greater advantage of all the opportunities of this new digital world that we're living in? To what extent are the critical players in the industry singing from the same hymn book?
I think I want to jump at it first, if you will allow me, Howard.
Sure.
Let me just say this. There is a general culture of ignorance in this society that it's almost all pervasive when it comes on to matters of exploiting, and I use this word very, very carefully in its most scientific term, but in making the best out of opportunities, particularly in cultural products, the music industry being our primary product.
Spell that out for us.
So what happens is that we have traditionally seen musicians, creatives, as those who provide the entertainment for the masters dining. They are not supposed to make money out of it, right? They are not supposed. This is not a high-level professional endeavor, is how we see it.
You're talking about what used to be or what is?
I'm talking about what is, what still is. Despite the barbarities that we have and the coffees that we celebrate and the chronics that we celebrate and all of these people that we make a song and dance about from time to time, intrinsically, we don't see entertainment, musicians, as a high-level professional endeavor.
Mine, you're not just carrying a chip on your shoulder, you're carrying a whole light pole,
I may be carrying a light pole, but Sir Golding, it is rightly so. When you look at it,
No, I don't say you won't find that among some people whose brain has seen better days, but in general, and particularly among the younger generation now, I kind of get a sense that there's an appreciation of our musical exponent, people who are the performers and the producers of local music.
It only sounds that way, sir. It only sounds that way, and let me tell you why. There is one institution in the country that at the tertiary level is charged with preparing professionals in as its primary function to prepare professionals for work within the context of the music industry. It is probably the least funded tertiary institution in the country, and it is called the Edna Manley College. If we were institutionally serious, it wouldn't have a problem with attracting funding, whether from public or private sector. It speaks to how serious we are about it.
Howard, jump in and rebut that argument for me.
No, I don't think you'll get me rebutting the argument. I think Ewan has captured quickly the history and the sort of context that we're dealing with when we talk about the creative industries generally and music specifically.
What needs to be done?
And well, that's where I want to get to, because and that's why I said he set the context. The historical perspective is important because we believe it is what has driven the fact that no serious focus and or development of our creative industries and the music industry in particular has been properly done, starting with the public sector, and as you had mentioned, Sir Bruce, in terms of the private sector then following. And I like to use the example whenever I am discussing this topic of the tourism industry. Back in around 1980, when the Hotel Incentives Act was produced, all we had was a fledgling tourism sector. But then that act in and of itself brought about the type of legislation that not only created incentives to get into tourism, but of course allowed for the level of focus from both public and private sector to develop a proper tourism sector. So here we are, 40 years later, and with a significant amount of investment in tourism. And I just use that as a quick example to show what is required. So where do we go from here? There's a certain amount of legislation that needs to be put in place to ensure that focused resources are actually spent on developing, first and foremost, the industry. What are we talking about? Infrastructure, which is where government finds its primary role in terms of facilitating that development, the infrastructure development that needs to take place. And let me use a quick example. Jamaica, which is arguably in the region, the music capital of the region, does not have a performing arts. Most other territories around the region have a performing arts center. So one, we need some infrastructure which starts with a performing arts center to allow shows to be kept and people developed, and going along the line that you and just mentioned. And then we need to have some other centers around which can be combined with sports. So you have sports and entertainment complexes to allow a certain level of infrastructure development. Then we need the focus in terms of the educational involvement and have that be institutionalized and taught that there is a career in music, as opposed to the historical perspective, which has always been one which said, boy, entertain. And because I know in my time, if I ever said to my parents, boy, I was going to music, or I was going to play football or sport, they would have kicked out of the house.
You worthless.
And where you are correct, Sir Bruce, where you are correct is that mindset is changing.
Yeah.
And it is changing. There's a generational change that now say, well, I know I can see more people that have made money out of it, but I don't know if the necessary apparatus is there to ensure
and
that
that's the challenge.
Ewan, we're coming up on a 12 o'clock break, and I'm going to have to go, but close out the discussion for me. You mentioned that we only have one Edna Manley. What are the other deficiencies that you identify apart from what Howard has enumerated?
So there needs to be financial incentives for private sector investing all the money you say it has in entertainment at different levels.
Yes.
That one move alone would cause some of the structures, the financial and economic structures that exist.
And the precedent is there because they get incentives to invest in agriculture, don't they?
Absolutely.
To invest in tourism, don't they?
And tourism.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if those incentives are put in place, not only will you get funding going to entertainment products, but you will also get the commensurate expertise in managing money, in projecting and planning that will now be applied to entertainment as a product.
I'm out of time. I want to thank both of you. Really thank you. You brought some very useful dimensions to this discussion. Thank both of you. Ewan Simpson, Chairman of Jamaica Reggae Industry Association, Mr. Howard Micheal, Chairman of the Entertainment Advisory Board.
No, Howard McIntosh. Micheal is...
Howard McIntosh. I'm sorry. Forgive me, old age. Thank you both very much. We're way past the break. We go for the 12 o'clock break. We'll be back in a little while. We're talking about the money that reggae music is making all over the world and how much of that money actually comes to Jamaica. The music industry in places like Europe and the US has earned significant income. I mean, I know in the US, for example, it's a little under 1% of GDP, but that still amounts to some $170 billion US dollars a year that the music industry brings in. It creates a lot of jobs. And we want to see how well Jamaica has been doing or not doing, and what perhaps can be done to maximize the benefits of this asset that we have called reggae music. We've been having some very, very instructive discussions since we started the program at 11 o'clock, and we're pleased we're going to continue in that vein because we're going to be joined now by Mr. Lloyd Stanbury, who is a renowned entertainment lawyer, researcher, promoter, consultant, author, publisher. And we're also being joined by Mr. Clyde McKenzie, who is a veteran with many, many hats. But the hat that I've asked him to wear today is as an eminent music scholar, historian, and analyst. And we're happy to welcome both of them to the program. Mr. Stanbury, Mr. McKenzie, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Hi.
Both of you are on, I hope.
Thanks. I think I'm on.
Good. Okay. Let me start with you. I tried over the weekend unsuccessfully to get my hands on a copy of Reggae Roadblocks. But I couldn't get hold of it. But I did get hold of a paper that you had co-authored for UNCTAD way back in 1998. And at that time, yeah, it's a long time ago, so 20 odd years ago. And at that time, you estimated that the value of reggae music to Jamaica, both from direct sales as well as from earnings from concert shows and so on, was in the region of $450 million US dollars. Where would you put that figure now? Do you have any sort of updated numbers on this?
No, I don't. And when I came up with that figure back then, it was a guesstimate because we operated then, and we still do operate in an environment where it is hard to come by hard data.
Very opaque.
About what is really happening in the Jamaican music industry. So you have to, just look at, some available information and extrapolate from that. I would say that the value of Jamaican music, which is what I was trying to say then, has grown. The global value of it has certainly grown. How much of that value comes to Jamaica, that's another question. And by that, when I say the value of Jamaican music, I'm looking at what is generated globally.
That's right, yes.
Out of all forms of Jamaican musical creativity.
Yeah, well, let us spend just a few moments on that arithmetic, because and let us be clear. There's no way that we can earn 100%, no, because if Jamaica is just too small to provide a market for us. So we're going to have to get to the rest of the world. The technology has changed so that we no longer have to be, pressing vinyls and trying to sell them all over the world. But we're going to have to share. I'd love to get a comparison, even if it's just a wild estimate of what is the money that reggae music makes globally, what share of that are we collecting, and what could that share become? In other words, are we getting 25%, but we really should be aiming at getting 50%? I mean, help me out.
What I would do is I would look at some of the things that are actually happening on the ground in terms of music distribution and in terms of earnings from live performances. For example, in the United States, I'm just going to look at two markets, U.S. market and the Latin American market. I'm not going to even touch Europe. Yeah? In North America, the live music market for reggae, Jamaica earns a very small portion of that. Yeah, and that is evidenced by who is touring and playing reggae in the United States and how many tickets they are selling. And the majority of the reggae festivals in the United States are hosted by non-Jamaican entities. The majority of the acts performing on those festivals are non-Jamaican. And the tours that are bringing in the most money from reggae in the United States are tours by non-Jamaican bands. Yeah? And that is a fact. Yeah?
Lloyd, let me just interrupt you for a moment, just to welcome and bring in our New York listeners, because I gather that they are now linked in, and want to hail up Beauregard. We're talking one of your favorite subjects, Mr. Beauregard. We're talking music, Jamaican music, and how we can capture some of a greater share of the wealth that Jamaican music is creating. How are things up there in New York?
Things are pretty great over here on this side, Mr. Golden. The weather is absolutely beautiful. Some of the same things have been going on, the current news, which is the vaccine and things of that nature. But everything else is all right. All
right. Well, hail up all my friends. I'm up there.
Yes, man.
Let me ask you, Clyde, to come in now on this issue. What is it that are there any low-hanging fruits that we could reach easily to really improve our retention from the wealth that reggae music is creating worldwide?
You would have heard a recurring theme through all of the commentary you have had earlier in this program. And I would categorize it as the low levels of indigenous investment in the music, especially from the marketing perspective, which is the more lucrative segment of the value chain. So what happens is that, as Mikey, I think, indicated, you have a situation in which the creators, as he describes them, they make the least amount of money. The people who are into the business of marketing.
Is that a worldwide phenomenon?
Well, the thing is,
what is the pattern?
The pattern is in the mainstream. The people in the mainstream markets usually are the one who controls that. Now, the thing is that you can have investment in mainstream infrastructure that would promote Jamaican music and which would bring more of the revenue generated from that to Jamaica. That's a possibility. And it might not be something that is immediately forthcoming, but as you rightly indicated, there might be a new mindset. I see an inclination for people from certain backgrounds now to be more disposed to investing and participating in the entertainment sector, particularly in areas such as festivals.
Finish up, because I want to put a question to Lloyd.
So there are, I tend to want to see the thing not just in terms of music. I want to frame it more along the lines that Ewan did, which is about cultural industries. And one of the things, for example, there is a growing interest in stories. And I'm talking about with places like Netflix. And one of the things that I'm seeing is a great interest being shown to Jamaican stories, because we have some fabulous stories about people who are associated with the music industry. And I think that is an area that we can capitalize on pretty quickly in terms of selling these stories, whether it is in book form and also the audio-visual products. I think that is an area that we can make some money quickly.
Lloyd, let me put this to you. To what extent are we being held back because we continue to be hostages to the big international labels, the Sony, the Universal, the Warner? Between the three of them, they control 75% of the global market. To what extent has technology and access to the internet liberated us from that kind of hostage situation, if that is where we were? And where do the VPs of this world, Miss Pat and her two sons, where do they fit in terms of helping us to grab more of what is our own?
I'm glad you posed that question and posed it the way you did. Yes, the internet, the digital revolution of the music industry, theoretically, should have liberated us, should have allowed us to free ourselves of being locked into the major label deal scenario. It hasn't. I think a lot of our artists are still seeking to get a record deal. And I'm going to go back to the point I was making earlier about the bands that are touring the United States, the reggae bands, the non-Jamaican reggae bands that are touring and filling up their venues. They don't have any record deals with any major labels. Yeah? But they have shifted the way that they market themselves. They're not following the traditional way of marketing their music. They are deeply entrenched into the new technologies and getting to their audience directly through social media and using the new tools that are available to them to market themselves. So they're not really relying on major labels to go out there and play to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 people and make money. And live shows, touring, is where artists really make money, unless you're selling millions of copies of records. So we have not taken advantage of
Why haven't we? I mean, because in the past, I gather in the past, for example, you did a recording. Very often the mixing had to be done abroad and so on. But with the technology that's available now, why we can't do the whole thing ourselves right here, including publishing, whether through iTunes or Spotify or whichever?
We are creating using new technology, but I don't think we are marketing using new technology.
I lost you.
Yeah. No, I think that's the point. The point that Lloyd is making is a very important one, in that the business model has shifted dramatically. I mean, in years gone by, record sales was the main driver of revenue for an artist and his associates. That has shifted because what used to happen is that touring used to be a loss leader in terms of the business. You tour to support your record and album sales. Now, almost the reverse is true. And where people are making money is through touring. And therefore, what you have to do is to enhance the touring opportunities. Now, you asked the question about doing it from here. One of the things that we have noticed is that, yes, there has been the removal of the gatekeepers, so the traditional media houses and the record labels. And what you would have expected is that you'd have had an untrammeled access to the marketplace, which isn't so, because with the lowering of the barriers to entry, what has happened is you have had a flood of products, which means the consumers are confused because there are so many things coming at them. And what has happened is that there is this phenomenon called the Shazam effect, which shows that people in this flood of information, people tend to retreat to the things that they are most familiar with and which they know best. And so one would have thought that...
But we have the real thing.
Huh?
We have the real thing. Don't we?
One would have thought, you mean the music?
Yes.
No, the thing is, it's not a question of whether we have the real thing. It's a question of all the other pieces of information that is competing with what we're putting out. So the fact is now, the question is, how do you distinguish yourself in this noisy clutter?
Yes.
And that is a challenge. That is a challenge now that most entertainers have in this new paradigm. And so you find that the big artists, who we thought would have been dislodged, they are more entrenched because people are now moving back to them because, they are the ones that are most easily recognizable.
Lloyd, what Clyde is outlining, and I'm understanding it, but is that peculiar to us, or is that the normal course of things in the non-traditional markets, say in Africa, in Latin America? Reggaeton, for example, is a takeoff from our reggae. Is it that they too have these challenges and have to sort of worm their way through all the obstacles because of what Clyde has been talking about?
That's right.
Well, in Latin America, yes, they do have similar challenges, but they have found ways to find their way through. And in fact, the Latin American music market is the fastest growing market in the world. Yeah? Is
there a salve? Is there a salve that they applied that we have not thought of?
They found ways. First of all, they have a much larger audience, a very large Spanish-speaking audience.
Yes.
Yeah, which gives them an advantage. Yeah, but it is something that we should think seriously about. as to how we can, because they used us to propel their market, because the market is growing primarily because of reggaeton. So we should find ways to use them to get a part of the market. And by using them, I don't mean it I'm not saying it in a derogatory way at all.
But let me argue.
We should be seeking to penetrate the Spanish-speaking market.
But let me argue that point with you a little bit, though. Doesn't the market already exist because of the Bob Marleys and the Jimmy Cliffs and the Shaggies and so on? Isn't there an appetite for reggae music everywhere in the world? It's just that we haven't found a way how to get into it, how to penetrate it.
That is exactly what it is. Reggae music is popular. Everybody wants reggae. Yeah, but the Jamaican practitioners have not found a way to get a commensurate share of that global market. And I think that is the issue that we need to solve that problem. We've been talking about it for a while, because reggae is not a problem. Music from Jamaica has a problem.
Yeah.
But reggae is fine.
If I might come in here, Lloyd and Sergi, one of the things that the point that Lloyd made about attaching ourselves to the reggaeton market is an important one. The other important one that we might not have discussed is the fact that the Latino market was part of a developed system. They inserted themselves in the mainstream market through traditional media investments, which we did not do. So they have an apparatus that is functioning, that is an adjunct to the new media structure that we don't have. And that is why it's so important for us to be a part or try to get ourselves insert ourselves in that structure, because that's a major problem in terms of our not being able to capitalize on those opportunities. You see? Now, the other area that we should be looking at, because one of the things I think we focus too much on Europe and the United States in terms of where we are directing our marketing. Africa is a wide open space. Latin America is a wide open space. And so we have to look to some of these areas where we have natural affinities, but we are not really exploiting.
What more, put this to both of you, what more does the government need to do in terms of providing leadership in this process? And importantly, and I keep dwelling on this because I believe that here is where a big part of the solution lies. What can the industry itself do? I was quoting you earlier, Lloyd. Was it Lloyd or Clyde I was quoting? I can't remember because I've read both of you. But the point was made about how much of a problem the industry faces because it is unstructured. Is there more? And Ibo insists that is improving, particularly with JARIA and so on. Is there more that the industry can do to put itself in a position where the owners of capital, who are not averse to taking risks as long as the risks are manageable, would look at music and say, hey, let me jump in here because this is a win-win situation? What more needs to be done, both by the government and by the industry itself?
I think the industry has improved in terms of trying to get itself more organized. The industry has moved forward, in my view, in putting structures in place to get organized. But there's still a long way to go as far as that is concerned. The government has done its part to some degree. I think, and this is something that I have suggested to government directly on several occasions, I think that our cultural and creative industries is so important to the development of our country that we should seriously consider the idea of having, I want to call it an international trade commissioner. Yeah?
For music?
That focuses on, no, cultural and creative industries.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because, and I say that because Clyde made a very key point. We have stories to tell. We have serious stories to tell, which takes us into the area of film, documentaries, books, and so on, which is a very good vehicle for promoting music. Yeah, I think that is our strength. We have the stories about the development of this music and the history of this music that has not been told. So if we were to focus on that area somewhat and create and put these stories out there, we would create a vehicle that would allow us to market our music globally in a better way than we are now. But I do think that if we really consider our cultural and creative industries to be as important as they are, we should look seriously at putting in place an international, possibly overseas-based, this is not a plug for anybody, but international, possibly overseas-based person or office that focuses on international trade for our cultural industries.
Let me ask both of you.
That's where the market is. The market isn't in Jamaica.
Let me ask both of you before we wrap up, because we're coming up to the break. It seems to me, remember, as I said at the outset of the program, I'm no expert in these matters. I'm just a curious inlooker. But it seems to me that certain of our artists, some names that come ready to the mind, Shaggy, Sean Paul, Ziggy Marley, seem to have been able to sort of perform above the sort of run-of-the-mill experience that many of our artists have. Is there a secret to their success?
Can I?
Yes.
No, go ahead, Lloyd.
The secret to their success is that they're professional.
They're hardworking.
They're hardworking. They're professional in every respect.
Yeah, that I think captures it in a nutshell. No, I'm not, and because what really happens, there are numerous tales of unprofessionalism that we could, recount here. That would just make you cry.
Yeah.
But also, I think what is happening is that those are outliers, and I'm saying we can normalize this.
Yes.
With the infrastructure, we can get more. You might not get Shaggy and Sean Paul, but you can get more people who are earning significant amount of money if we have the appropriate infrastructure in place. So yeah, I mean, what many of they have shown, the Jimmy Cliffs and the Shaggies and so on, they have shown that there is a demand for the music. But I want to make one other point.
You have to be quick for me.
The consumption pattern of Jamaican music, because in a lot of instances it's not reflected in the official statistics. And when you see what happened with Beenie Man and Bounty Killer and the popularity that they enjoyed on Versa, it shows you that the consumption of their music is different from people going to the store and buying or going on Spotify and paying for it. So, I mean, we need to understand the idiosyncrasies of our market in terms of how we're going to deal with monetizing it.
Well, we have to wrap it up there, and we're going to be talking about some more monetizing with my next guest. So can I thank both of you, Lloyd Stanbury, Clyde McKenzie. You've been very, very helpful to this program today. Thank you for your contribution to this discussion. Let's keep this discussion going. I believe it's important to Jamaica. Very, very important. I was amazed when I looked at some numbers in other countries at the kind of revenue that they're pulling in from their music, and I say, hey, I didn't have any benchmark figure for Jamaica to compare it with, but it had me salivating when I saw the potential of the music. Thank both of you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Good. I gather No, we're not taking any break. No, we're going straight through. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. We want to welcome to the program now Mr. Joe Bogdanovich, who is a major investor in Jamaican music through Down Sound Records Productions, through Sting, through Reggae Sumfest, has transformed himself into a Jamaican even though he wasn't born here. I really want to welcome him to the program. Joe, welcome.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Mr. Golding. It's great to be here. It's a great topic, and I agree with you that we need to carry this discussion further and make something happen.
It's good to have you, Joe. We've been trying to see how can we improve our asset management of reggae music. Where are we doing well, and where are we coming up short?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Well, you can afford to answer it.
I like dreamers, and I appreciate your compliments.
No, go ahead. What more do we need to do? Because I get a sense, you see, that no one can give me any precise figure, and I don't know if any precise figure actually exists because we're not very good at capturing data. But I get a sense that if reggae music generates $1 of income, that it's a small portion that Jamaica is actually benefiting from. Now, we can't capture the whole dollar because we don't have the market. We're not like America. If American music didn't sell anywhere else but America, they still have a hell of a market to support it. Mm-hmm. We don't have that. Right. So we have to be prepared to share that dollar. But for crying out loud, man, is we create the music, we took it to the international market. Is it that we're too lethargic? Mm-hmm. Why we're not grabbing more of the value chain?
I can tell you. I know the answer. You've got to get the community, the artist, to begin with the artist, to really understand the meaning of a contract and honor your contract. You have to be able to be reliable to do good business in the international marketplace. And that's still a hustle mentality as opposed to a business mentality.
Well, I want to ask you the blunt question because I know you're a man, you don't talk with water in your mouth. Is there too much indiscipline within our music fraternity?
No question about it, but they're getting better. And the reason why they're getting better is because of technology. Yeah. These kids are really sharp. You know, they're online, they're learning, self-learning. They know a lot about how to communicate now, like in ways never before. Yeah. And I think that it's going to be a lot easier than you think. And I think that there are some young artists out there already. They're spending more time in the American culture and the international culture and learning how to be able to communicate with technology. Yes. But I think with me, you know, I come from a different culture and I come from a different country. But when it comes to your business and life and dreams and aspirations, it's either can do or no can do. You're either going to do it or you're not. You accomplish your mission or not. And I think that is a very key understanding that you must have to be drilled into your mind as you're growing up in school, in your home environment, and with your big leaders in the music business and artists that help support that kind of thinking.
Is it a question, Joe, that reggae music has already saturated the market and therefore what we should be focusing on is how can we get a bigger share of that saturation? Or is it that the market is still has tremendous potential for more reggae penetration? What's your take?
Okay. I think that the reggae music is going through a transition right now. And I think it's just the way it is, whether it's good or bad or indifferent. But I think the genre is changing as the traditional Jamaican reggae music has evolved, also incorporating other genres from across the world. Uh-huh. Jamaican music is becoming more popular in the world today, and it is. It's becoming more popular with variations of the Jamaican beat. There's variations, and there's synthesis and stuff like that. And I think that's the way you need to be looking from putting your feet on the ground and looking out about how the youth of the world are transforming themselves.
Are we losing our grip on it? I mean, you look at what Puerto Rico did with reggaeton that has now kind of taken off in Latin America. You look at what the Africans have done with reggae. I mean, I've listened to some fabulous reggae music that comes straight out of Africa. Is it that we have lost the grip and therefore reggae, even though we can forever claim that this is where it was born, but the world has really captured it now, so it's no longer ours and ours only?
Well, you probably know the answer to that, sir, because let's say you asked that question when you had those transformations from ska to other variations to finally to reggae and dancehall. That might have been a question you might have asked back then as you were a youth.
Yes.
So what's the answer? What's the answer? It's evolving, right?
Yes, that's you. That's you. One final question before I let you go. I was looking at reggae concerts, live shows.
Yes.
And I looked at Portugal. You probably know the market there much better than I do. Portugal has a population of about 10 million. So it's just, 3.5 times the size of Jamaica. But they have something like 40 odd music festivals every year. We have Reggae Sumfest, we have Sting, we have Rebel Salute. We are a big, attractive tourist destination, so that's a big vehicle. Why aren't we doing more in that area?
I think that you're trying to do too much at the same time. You only have so many artists here on this island, reggae artists, dancehall artists. People get tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. So you have to be very inventive and creative about how to build something that's really entertaining as opposed to screaming all the time. You have to understand what entertainment means and how to broaden your vision there. Yeah. Again, it comes down to opportunity. I think the picture isn't as bleak as one might think. I think the technology, again, is the key. Yes. Education is the key. And how can the government be more supportive?
Yes.
Is what I've been asking everybody for the last hour or so.
Yes.
I think they have to be able to work with entities that really have the best interests of the people at heart, the ones that are growing in this new industry,
yes.
And to be able to and to make them believe you. That's the problem with governments. They have a special kind of people there. So,
final question I want to put to you. You came to Jamaica. You took up your money and you invested in promoting reggae music. Why is the typical Jamaican investor, some of whom are sitting on piles of lazy capital, why are they so risk averse? Why are they so timid? Why are they so scared of putting money into Jamaican music?
You have to remember, from my understanding, reggae comes from the streets.
Yes. And
it's very volatile in the streets. There's not a big difference between the present, past, and future. It's now, right now. It's a now background where this came from.
But that didn't seem to frighten you.
No, but you asked people about people here, not foreigner. That's what you said, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, but from someone like me, I'm a different kettle of fish. I love the culture. I love the competition. I love the sense of humor. I love the fashion, and I love the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I like the struggle. I like what they're doing as an African Jamaican nation.
Well, those are supposed to be characteristics of risk takers. No?
Well, I am a risk taker, and I'm trying to be less risky and be more helpful. But, when it comes to something like Reggae Sumfest in 2022, we're looking at what are we going to do to top 2019, which was probably the biggest reggae festival ever hit this place at 20,000 people a night for big show nights. And when you look at the internet and how we reached millions of people in continuing growing with repeat programming, how are we going to top that? And the way we're going to top it is by bringing better entertainment, even better production, and something that the people will feel safe and have enough room to walk around in. But the real deal is, we brought in over $1.4 billion into the economy of Montego Bay in 2019, and we did that in 1 week. Can you imagine if we had the opportunity to do that 12 months a year?
Yes.
What would happen?
Well, that's what I was alluding to.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
I'm
I was
also
alluding to.
what I'm really saying is that it seems that we have our priorities mixed up because we don't have our feet on the ground, and to understand your warriors of great reggae and dancehall music. These people are, we're proud to have them.
Well, I believe you can help us to transform that kind of thinking, And I know that you're doing your part in that effort because you put your money where your mouth is and where your mind is and where your passion is. And I really want to commend you and thank you. I'm running out of time. My producer told me that I'm older. But Joe, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having you on the program, and really, really the help that you have given us in terms of moving this discussion is really, really appreciated. Thank you so very much.
All right. Thank you.
Good. And as we enter the home stretch, there's no better person to take us to the winning tape than my next guest, my final guest. He's one of our most outstanding performers, promoters, and musical ambassadors, and is someone who I think is one of our most inspirational reggae artists. He's a gentleman called Mr. Patrick Barrett. And I know many of you go ask me, who that? Well, Jamaicans here and in the diaspora know him as Tony Rebel. Rebel man, welcome to the program.
Yes, sir.
How you been?
Sir, good. But good, man. I was just listening to you talking about me. I said, all those accolades are good. I need to tape it.
As a matter of fact, I had to leave out some of them.
That's true. That's true, sir. That's true. It's my pleasure to talk to you, man.
Tony Rebel.
And I'm here with you on that last stretch you talk about there, so let's go.
Yeah, we've been talking about the music business. The general theory, which is what has inspired the discussion on the program today, is that reggae music, because of the work of people like Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff and Desmond Dekker, and people before your time, and people like you, and people who have come after you, who you have helped to inspire. They have penetrated the entire world with our music. There's no part of the world you go to and there is not a receptivity and an excitement about reggae music. I mean, it is now big business throughout the world, and a lot of money is being generated. But how much of that money is coming back here? How many jobs are we creating because we have been able to maximize our share of that value chain? As I've been saying on the program, we can't capture every dollar out of it because our market here is too small. I mean, less than 3 million people can't support reggae in terms of where reggae has reached today. So we're going to have to depend on the external market, and therefore we have to share that dollar with them. But there's a sense that they are getting the bigger share of the dollar than we are getting. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. And one of the main reasons is because we have not maximized all the different areas and the different opportunities that are there within
our genre of music. I mean, we don't deal with our IP very well. We don't deal with synchronization rights. We most of the distribution of our music from a longer time always done by people abroad, and then they pay us royalty, and even some of the kind of royalties that we can get from our music, some of us don't even know to sign up for those in order to make sure that they deliver to us. So it's a.
I want to get back to that last point, but tell me now, to what extent has digital technology helped us or hurt us?
It both. It helps and hurt, because you can make one click, and one click can make you sell millions. But because it's not everybody who are technologically savvy, they might not know how to do that. So the people who used to sell 2,000 records to the Europeans, and they are sure that if they sell 2,000, they can get back their studio money, the artist money, and the stamper money, and all of that cut out. So people who used to do that before, that is now gone. This new paradigm is something that everybody have to be working on to understand how to get money out of this.
Are we getting better at it, Tony Rebel?
Well, we have to. We have no choice. We have no choice. We have to get better. Some people might just throw them hands down, but then we have to. And then it calls for some form of governmental support, not to the point where control is being,
you can't control artistry.
No, you can't do that. But we need that kind of support to kind of help us, because sometimes to organize yourself call for a little bit of money, and it also calls for people who have a broader understanding of how to garner our money. A lot of us have a whole heap of money sit down all over Europe and in the Americas.
Ibo Cooper was pointing out that in Britain, for example, they did something that made a world of a difference, and that they provided venture capital. Well, not venture capital. They provided startup money for young artists, up and coming artists, to sort of develop their project, and And the thing with this, Ewan made the point, and it's something that we have to understand. There will be many failures in the process, That's the nature of the business.
Right.
But there will be some successes that will more than make up for the failures,
Right. Well, I mean, Shabba had a song that says, some sit down and wait on a next hit song while he have one programmed.
Yeah.
So if you set the right program, and you follow all the rules and the laws that govern a successful artist or a successful producer, it can happen, because there are ways and means.
How are we in terms of intellectual property protection? Are we okay there?
No, we're not, because we don't understand the IP segment so well, and it is very broad. It is not just one thing. So I guess we have to be educating ourselves more about that, and especially the young artists. They will have to learn more how to control their rights and make sure that everything comes under one umbrella and nobody is robbing them. But you were talking about that vibe from England, where in Jamaica, we need to harness more of our young artists and just people who are in the music industry, and as it mentioned, that they need that startup thing, but most of us don't like to create things and grow it, We like the ready done, If an artist come forward and work on a career and reach on a particular plateau, then everybody gravitate towards that artist, but nobody really know the amount of time maybe that artists have to sit at studio and get turned down and then, still continue with perseverance. So we need to get into that area, because even myself here, when sometimes I just walk on the street and somebody just sing or send some lyrics to me, and the way it's shown, you can know that if these people get a chance to present what they have, they could be a next Bob Marley or a next Jimmy Cliff. Why we need to really, sit and come together and figure out how we can really sustain what we have already, because as you mentioned, those stalwarts at the initial stage, they've gone out there by themselves with maybe little help from our people and has bring the music to the four corners of the earth, where, as you mentioned, everywhere that you go now, they don't know your song, they know a Bob Marley. Now we have that foundation already, and all we have to do is try to sustain that.
I'll leave one final thought with you because we're running out of time. And it's a thought that has sort of emerged in my head since we started discussing this issue today.
Yes.
Do you think it would be useful and valuable if we were able to convene all of the stakeholders, the artists, the producers, the promoters, you name them, the musicians, the government institutions, and the private sector, the man them who have the capital to invest. If we're ever able to get everybody to sit down at the conference center one day and just level with each other and say, no, look, this is big business that can benefit us far more than it has benefited us today. So let's start to work together. Is that possible, Tony, or I'm dreaming?
Well, sure. You rate your man from a long time. So therefore, your thought is very positive and it's possible. It's going to be hard because there's a lot of ego in this industry. And sometimes when a man can find him dinner, you can't tell him what to do.
Yes, that's true.
You know, it's like there's a whole lot of artists that are very rich and producers and so forth. And if them crony tell them that 3 and 2 is 7, them going to it's like if them say them cronies going to say, yeah man, 3 and 2 is really 7 for 2. So it's going to be hard to have that, but that would be great.
Tony, I have to run, but make us water that little seed, you know? And see how we can grow.
I'll put it in my head too.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that, Tony Rebel, one of our biggest music ambassadors. That brings us to the end of the program today. I want to thank all my guests. Running out of time, so I can't even name them again, but they have all been so helpful in this discussion about reggae music, the business of reggae, and the money that can be made from reggae and the jobs that can be created from reggae. We need to do a lot more. That's all from me for this week. I'll be back next week, Monday, Jamaica Live, Bridge 99.